The conversation you are about to hear was recorded in 2020 during the height of the global pandemic. And now, Global Comedy Studios presents, Is This a Bad Time to Talk?
All right, May 20th, 2020, 1:30 New York time, 10:30 Los Angeles time, or a little bit later, 10:34. I'm calling Rich Fulcher. Rich Fulcher is funny as funny gets. Good guy, great heart, loves to make people laugh, has done tons of stuff, spent a lot of time over in England making content on a show called Mighty Boosh, and he's done a ton of stuff since he's been back. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I'm going to give him a call right now. Hello?
Hi.
Rich Fulcher?
Yes.
This is Ali. Is this a bad time to talk?
No, not at all.
AKA, I'm here to listen.
Well, I'm here to talk, Professor.
Perfect yin and yang. Oh, by the way, I have to inform you, this phone call is being recorded, but in New York, you have to tell people that.
Oh, not in Vegas.
That's right. And are you cool with that? Are you cool with this?
Totally cool.
That it may someday be posted if I figure out how to do it.
Okay, as long as the IRS doesn't get this.
Are
I've
you
done a couple of shady things.
Yeah. Hey, that's just between you and me, Rich. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020, around 10:34 LA time, 1:34 New York time. If nothing else, you got the day and time out of this.
It's over the hump day.
And am I finding you in Los Angeles now?
Yes, I'm in the way out suburbs of Los Angeles. It's called Woodland Hills. It's pretty far out, but it is technically Los Angeles, yeah.
And it's morning, you've made some coffee, and you've been kind enough to take my phone call, which a lot of people won't do.
Really?
I don't know.
Do tell.
I don't know. But this thing was born out of the pandemic, where I was like, I have to do something. I'm just sitting here doing nothing. And then I decided to get this app called Tape-A-Call, and I have this old handheld phone that I plug into my iPhone to give it that old-timey feel, like I'm talking to a friend on a phone.
Yeah.
And then I started with Kevin McDonald of Kids in the Hall, and I just started going through my phone because I thought, if people found my phone and saw the people who were in it or the people I could get to, they'd be like, why don't you talk to these people?
Exactly. Go through your phone directory.
Go through it like the 14-year-old your young self and go, oh, my God, Rachel Dratch is in your phone, You know
what? That's what Dan Harmon said. When you're looking for characters, just go through your phone directory. They're all there.
Wow. I mean, it's already panning for gold, and I've got a nugget.
But what's good, Ollie, is you've turned a negative, the pandemic, into a positive.
I got to look for the silver linings.
Exactly. I've got to do something like that. Not exactly like that.
I don't care if you do. You got kids too. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't fault anybody for
bread on the table.
Yes, homemade sourdough.
I'm not really a bread maker. Are you into that now?
No, not yet, but I have made some crispy rice that I never would have made.
Yes. I'm doing a lot of BBQ.
Well, my wife said something early on in the pandemic that struck a chord, and it was already kind of happening. She said there'll be two kinds of people who come out of the pandemic after the quarantine, those who came out better or those who came out worse.
Can I revise that?
Please.
Those who came out better or those who came out butter?
Oh, I like that. All writing is rewriting.
Yeah, writing is rewriting, right?
Just resign yourself to a shoddy first draft, get it down on paper, and then begin to chip away.
But the key to writing, though, is a little air guitar. You got to start out before you're writing. You got to do something like air guitar. I do about 30 minutes.
Oh, rest in peace, Michael McCarthy, you angel. Gosh, what an angel. I mean, he is the reason I moved to Chicago. I moved to Chicago November 1st, 1990 to take Michael McCarthy's writing class at the Second City because he was a former SNL writer. And I thought, well, I'll just go there, take this one class, and then I'll get a job at SNL.
Yeah, bing, bang, boom.
So clueless. I'm still clueless.
No, but you've got to be clueless because when I think back all the stuff I did, I would never do all that now. You know, like think right now, would you go and do all the things that you did? Like take all the classes, do all the, you know, nighttime gigs. It's too hard now.
Well, I mean, with the kids and the family and the age, and it's just like, it's a young person's thing because you have to approach it with the naivete. Well, or you could be young at heart. I don't want to discourge anybody at any age from doing it. But
you're
right.
This podcast to be ageist.
No, because I've broken the half century mark. I don't feel it. But, I'll use my AARP to get a McDonald's coffee.
Exactly. But you know what? That's why, because we forget pain and bad things, that's a good thing because we do it again. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that second kid. If it was very painful, we've got to forget.
I would love, this is something similar that I say women have children because they don't remember the pain. I bet there's a list of things like that. They're like cocktail party things that are these kind of things that we all know from a certain generation of we don't remember pain. That's why people have a second baby.
Listen, I'll have an old fashioned. Yes, that's why women don't have a second baby.
And the old fashioned is the perfect drink.
Yeah. Gotta
perfect
love that.
drink. Oh my God!
Well, you know what I mean. You just sort of do things. You just do them and forget about like auditions, man. You do an audition and it's really bad, but then the next one you go, oh, another audition. You just put that last one out of your mind.
I mean, we were just showing up to the second floor of a bar in Wrigleyville to take classes.
That's when I saw you.
That's right. It was in Dell's class.
Dell's class. I was sitting right next to you. Remember?
Yeah, of course I remember.
Elevated tables, and it was like we were all squunched in, right? And I remember you were, I don't know if I should say it, you were so nervous. You were drinking beer out of a paper bag.
It was a time. It was a time, and I tell this to folks. I said, where you could bring a six-pack of beer to class and no one thought anything of it, or at least they didn't say anything. Even Dell.
And you know what? You know what I respected about you? You gave me a couple of sips of the beer.
Well, I was in a fraternity. That's how I rolled. I was Animal House generation.
Yes. And
I
was nervous too.
I was so nervous in those classes that everyone would do a scene. Some people would do a second scene, and then Dell would say, Ali, are you going to do a scene today?
But I remember that day specifically. You did a killer scene. It was about, everything was going fine. Like it was just a normal domestic scene. And then you said something, it's like, yeah, what about this, you fucking my wife or something? And it just changed. Oh, can I drop the F-bomb? No.
Yeah, because I don't know if anybody will ever listen to this because I don't know if it's recording. I don't know how to take the recording and do something with it. So right now, it's just an excuse to catch up and talk to old friends.
But the thing was, and then it was so nervous, because remember that somebody else went on stage and then totally got lambasted because she came on at the wrong time or something. And it's just, and then, Sharna and Dell talking to each other after the scene, the nerves.
It was a magical time because, Sharna told me, she wanted to put me on a team and I didn't want to be on a team. And you know, and then she was like, I'm putting on a team this Friday night. And then Dell was like, make sure he's on a good team, you know. But D. Ryan was in our first class together. We had a class, and Ian Roberts was in that class.
Yes, he lives out near here.
I mean, there were like 20 people upstairs at Wrigley Side by Wrigleyville, which is gone now. And, you know, Dell would teach his classes. I think it was Monday nights.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
was
so
like magic.
I got there November 1st, 90, right? When did you show up to Chicago? Because I remember being in that class with you.
Well, I got after law school. I was like about 90. I think it was 91. I basically signed up for, I knew I didn't want to go into law, so I signed up for players' workshop classes before I had graduated, just knowing like, oh, I'm going to go, because I'd heard about this thing called Second City, like everybody goes there. And so I signed up for the intensive summer, because normally it takes a whole year. I just decided I'll get it all done in the summer. And then I was like you, then I'll go into Second City, or I'll go to Saturday Night Live and then do Caddyshack 2 or 3 if they're doing that. And it was just like when I was in law school, I had comfort in the fact that like, hey, I'm going to be doing something totally different than this boring shit. So I headed out right after that, pretty much.
But how did you know about Second City in Chicago and Players Workshop? Because there was no internet back then. So where did you go to law school?
Well, I went in Virginia, Washington and Lee. But my girlfriend at the time told me about it. She said, hey, you ought to, and then I think she gave me a book about it, but I started like doing some, I think I got a book. I bought a book in a bookstore about Second City, and it was like, this is amazing. All of these people went to the one place. And then George Wendt has that quote, like, this is like the Harvard of comedy or something, Harvard Law School of Comedy. And I thought, that is perfect. Because, like, you know, if you're, like, in that mindset of, like, education and, you know, going from one step to the next, you sort of have solace that, you know, you join it and then you'll graduate and then you'll be able to do something with that, even though that, you know, there's no logic to that in showbiz.
But so everyone knew you were funny around you? I mean, without embarrassing you. So people, would they always tell you should do this? Or had you done it prior to this in some way?
I hadn't. I mean, when I was in law school, I hosted a talent show called Thursday Night Live. So, I mean, I was interested in that, and everybody goes, you know, they asked me to host stuff and, you know, they thought I was funny, and they go, you should, you know, some people would say you should do stuff. But I wasn't really, you know, emboldened by that. I was just sort of like, I really like, you know, if I get into the law track, it's going to be even worse if I quit in 2 years, because then they're going to say, oh, you're on track to be partner. And then it would be a bigger deal to leave a law firm. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. If it doesn't work out, you know, I can always, you know, go back or whatever, do something else. But I've got to do it now. That was my attitude.
And throughout your life when you were younger, growing up, there were no classes or a school play or a teacher who might have said something to you that told you to, you know, you should take a class or be in the play or something?
Not really, because, I mean, my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around every 2 years. So, I mean, I just liked hanging out. I mean, my thing was like, I still do. I love hanging out with people and making them laugh. And if I can do that for a living in any way, shape, or form, I wanted to do that. You know? So there wasn't any mentor or anybody that took me inside and said, son, there's this place called Second City. And no, there was nobody like that for me. But so that's why I felt like, it was like this taboo thing, but it was still something I had to do.
But I would think that moving around every 2 years, you've got to get good at making friends. You got to either get good at fighting or making friends.
Exactly. So I wasn't a fighter. I didn't know Krav Maga or anything like that. And so I basically tried to, make people laugh. And, yeah, I was getting pretty good at it. And then, you have to adapt. So you noticed a lot of people in entertainment, a lot of them were like military brats. Jim Morrison, he is funny as hell. I'm sure there are other people on it, but
But Jim Morrison, interestingly enough, apocryphal story, although I think it's true, he used to have to perform with his back to the audience in the beginning because he had such bad stage fright.
Exactly.
That happened to me too.
Well, I just remember going to school, like the worst situation, the worst nerve-wracking thing I experienced, I remember, is like when you go in front of the class on your first day, like in the middle of school, you just moved, and they go, class, this is Rich, this is the class, and it was just like knots in my stomach.
Now, was your family a funny family?
No, not funny. My dad was in the Air Force, and he had his dad jokes, and but no. So I found that funny. I found the seriousness of the situation funny. So I was always trying to subvert that, whole serious nature.
So you could tell that they were a serious family and, buttoned up, and, that just seemed absurd to you of why they're so serious.
Well, because my mom would always say something like, Richard, don't be a silly person. Like, for fear that I won't get a legitimate job or anything, or, don't be a silly person. So that, obviously that made me want to do it even more. So now I find myself now telling my kids, like, stop being silly.
Interesting.
I gotta stop that.
You want to tell them to be silly, so they go the other way, and like it goes. It's a pendulum. It goes back and forth each generation.
Yes, exactly.
And it can only be viewed through the landscape of time to go, did you see this? They went back and forth each generation for 1,000 years.
I would like to. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to study. Is if people have yin-yang back and forth. But,
and so, I'm sorry.
No.
Were there shows that you watched, or the TV, or things in movies that you saw that you're like, oh my gosh?
I remember. Okay, when we were in like Nebraska, we would get on PBS. That's the only way you would get like certain shows. There was Monty Python, and I was like, that was my, like, I memorized all the sketches, and me and my friend Steve would just be on the bus just doing every Monty Python bit. And so it was like, that was my sort of humor. And also like the Pink Panther movies and everything, I just thought at the time that those were so funny. So, naturally I love lots of, stuff. I watch TV all the time, but those kind of stick out in my mind. It's like, and plus it was a little taboo because occasionally Monty Python would flash somebody be topless or something, and I thought, oh wow. There's silence on the other.
I'm here to listen. AKA when I talk to folks, my goal is when I talk to folks a couple, 2-3 times throughout it, my listening is so powerful. They go, "Hello, are you there?" And I'm like, "I'm here to listen."
And then you start confessing things you don't really want to say, and that's when I killed a guy. What?
That's the negotiation game. But it's interesting that, like, looking at the fabric of time and the timeline, that you would find something like Monty Python, and be enamored by it, and this becomes like this, the shining light for you, and you found another person to do make believe with who got it, and then you ultimately had a career in England doing BBC TV.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic that happened. So, I mean, naturally there's a gravity towards the, that sort of thing. I mean, but I loved all sorts of things. I loved, MASH. I loved all sorts of comedy. But yeah, it just so turned out I went there. But that was like just sort of a fluke thing.
Well, I mean, hopefully we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's interesting that these things, Monty Python, MASH, and the Pink Panther movies also were things that, and we're roughly the same, age, were things that I was also watching at that time. That was like, what is this?
Yeah. They're in a hospital in a war?
Yeah, yeah. But it was just something about the way they talked. It was a certain comfort food feeling to it for me. It brought me comfort. It was just, I don't know, the silliness of it, but with a serious environment, and it was just a good cast. And then that's what made me realize, like, it doesn't really matter what the frame is, because they're in a hospital in Korea.
Yeah. I mean, I think I gravitated towards, silliness, but in a straight environment, because that's kind of what I grew up in. It's sort of like, did you ever read Steve Martin's book on stand-up?
Born Standing, yes, yeah.
I think it's like, didn't he say, like, if his act is kind of silly, so if he dressed up in a weird outfit or something, it just wouldn't hit as hard as if he dressed in a suit. Like, if you dress in a suit and then do that, there's something about the juxtaposition that makes it that much better.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it gives you status. As Dell used to say, if they're wearing a blazer, you wear a suit. If they're wearing a suit, you wear a tuxedo. If they're wearing a white tuxedo, you wear a white tuxedo.
With sales.
You would always take it. That's right. He would always say, be a little bit dressed a little nicer than your audience. It gives you a little equity.
Yeah. Like, go ahead.
No, my bad.
I'm trying to think. Paul F. Tompkins. I don't know if you know him. Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah.
He wears a suit all the time, and I love it. I just don't know if I could pull it off.
Well, I mean, I think you got to do what works for you. It works for him. He started doing it, and he's held to it, and he likes to dress well, and he's smart. I think all that stuff adds to it if you've got the other stuff, so it's just a choice, I think.
I'm going to wear a suit.
Do it. Why not?
Do it. It's not too late.
Never too late, man. Never too late to reinvent.
When was the last time you wore a suit?
Oh, I have suits. I bought suits. I love suits. I'd love to wear a suit,
I know you do.
I mean, it's just like, but in this pandemic, it's time to reinvent.
Yeah.
What's it going to be? When are they going to make stuff again? Am I going to be in stuff?
You got to make stuff, right?
You got to. But you were always doing that. Like, even, we took those classes together with Dell. We were in the same class, right? And then we were on that improv group, Wheel of Tuna, that Sharna put us on. And we did that for a while, but then you started making stuff,
I did?
Yeah, because you did, Modern Problems in Science.
Yeah.
When did that come about?
What's weird is, like, we were there in the days when there were, like, factions in comedy. Like, there was Second City, Improv, Olympic, and The Annoyance. And they were almost like separate things. And I was also an annoyance guy, so I started doing stuff. Walsh was doing that too, And it would be like almost fights would break out between them.
I remember nights.
I
remember that. Yeah. Absolutely. We almost got
with Raj.
Yeah, one night.
Mike Coleman.
That's right. We almost got in a. We I don't know why it was so tribal at the time, but it was like IO, Annoyance, Second City, and the folks at that time at IO and Annoyance didn't want to be at Second City until it was like, oh yeah, this is the only place where you can get paid.
But you know what broke it? I think what broke the barrier was Adam McKay.
Yeah.
When he got hired, it was almost like, what? What he was supposed to be doing, everything for free. It's like now it's legitimate to go to Second City.
Right. I think it was
going there.
Right. It was a combination of that and that he had never taken a class there. Prior to Adam, I don't think they hired people who didn't go through their program.
Yeah.
So it was the combination of we're going to hire someone who didn't take our classes and, his own irreverence for Second City. But then he was like, it's time.
Yeah, because I think for a while, well, it's the natural inclination is they have homegrown directors and stuff that used to perform there, and it just got a little bit like they wanted some juice, get some juice, and then IO had gotten his reputation, and then, yeah.
How did you end up at the Annoyance? How did you find out about taking classes there?
But see, I'm a class taker.
You are.
And a love maker. No, so I take the classes because that's my way of thinking that I'm doing a lot. So, I mean, the Annoyance, I knew some people that were in it. It's like a little club. I started going there a lot. And then we did the show. We started doing the show, Modern Problems. And it just started, it was much more of a club, where you would sort of like have to get, the more shows you did, the more, you became more a part of the club and everything.
And Modern Problems in Science, that was somewhere in 91, 92. It was you, Dick Costello, and who else? Who
was the former CEO of Twitter.
That's right, Dick Costello. I mean, do you have any idea how much Dick has got, money-wise?
What his net worth is?
I mean, it must be insane.
I think he's doing okay. He was a consultant for Silicon Valley.
For the show.
He's doing a lot of cool stuff now. Like, he's doing his own thing. But he was always like a guy that, he was pursuing his other career at the same time as doing like, Abe Lincoln Sex Alien and stuff. So, and then the third person, of course, is Granchi.
Paul Granchi?
Phil Granchi.
Phil Granchi, right. Right, Granchi.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. What a blast from the past.
It was. But you guys...
he's a doctor now. He's like a radiologist or somebody.
Wow.
Yes.
What a journey.
Yes. So we did... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, how did it happen? How did you guys put that together?
Phil actually started, he goes, I want to do this, because I guess he had heard I have a law background and Dick has kind of a computer science, and he thought, I want to do an improv show where we're teaching a class, but it's like improvised. So we get a weird hypothesis from the audience, like the Earth is a giant baboon named Andre, and then we'd have to prove it, and then the audience would give you different expertise, like you're robotics and you're English literature. And so you teach as that professor, and so we thought, oh, that's great, we'll do it. That would also get us in more with the Annoyance and stuff, and so we did it, and it just started to be a regular thing with us, like a muscle. And we did it, and then Dee's husband, he's with the Reduced Shakespeare Company. Is this boring?
I'm here to listen.
Will this be edited?
I don't even know if this will be posted. Right now, it's just a phone call between old friends. I can't even promise you this is actually recording.
Okay. I have a feeling it will.
I hope so. I hope it records. I hope I figure out to
get something. It will happen.
I hope so. And I need to get a tech person to help me, to show me how to cut it together and post it. But so you guys, you're doing this show, and then Dee's husband,
Austin, who does the Reduced Shakespeare Company, which is like the show that tours all around the world. He said, you guys would kill at the Edinburgh Festival. It's like a theater comedy festival that happens every year in August. So, we were so excited about that. We signed up. We basically produced ourselves the first year. And, shows normally don't make any money. They usually break even at the most. And we were like making money. We were at a small venue that was an old Masonic lodge. And the show just kind of caught on. And then we got a manager out of it in the UK. And so that's how I just started doing more stuff in the UK, because I had a manager and stuff. And so we did about three Edinburgh festivals, and then we went to Australia and New Zealand. We went to Singapore. Yeah, we were touring it everywhere. Because I think what was popular about it for English-speaking countries is like everybody knows a class. A class. Everybody has a class. It's universal. So, I think people could relate to it.
What's amazing is just like this little idea by a future radiologist, and finding you guys, Grant G. It all of a sudden became a vehicle for you to tour the world and see the world and have experiences.
Yes. So I did it, and then I came back to Second City, and it almost seemed like a little bit like I was done with it. I felt like, I'm going back to this. I'm going on the bus to it was fun. I loved it, but I wasn't able to move up because I had gone away, which was ironic because they told me it's great if you get more experience elsewhere. But because I had left and gotten experience, they didn't let me go up right away. So I was like, well, I'm kind of done with that. And I know some people felt like I've got to finish the whole, journey of Second City, like you're going through, graduating from school. But I felt like, I'm doing this already. I'm having fun. And then it just turned out that the group split up. And then I asked the manager in the UK, I go, is there anything, do you want to still represent me? And then that's when I started, getting other stuff.
Now, what was your process like from going from IO to being hired in the touring company at Second City? You were also founding member type stuff with UCB and us. You did the conference on happiness.
Yeah, conference on the future of happiness. I did some shows with them, and it just sort of that was great. And then it's just like I was there right when everybody was starting to. Ian went, and I don't know if you were already in, but Walsh was in, Matt Walsh, and then it was just sort of like, yeah, I'm going to audition, and it was just almost like not even a thought went into it. It's like, yeah, Second City, you get paid to do it. It's like, why not?
It's interesting that it goes from when you get to Chicago being this thing for you where it's like it would be a dream come true. But once you've tasted touring the world with your own show and you come back, it's like the glimmer is not there as much.
Yes, because I always thought about things in terms of defined levels. Like I thought this is how it was going to be. Second City, Saturday Night Live, movies and TV. Like if you did those things, tick those boxes, that would happen. And it's like it doesn't turn out that way. This business is the most illogical business where anybody could get hired for anything at any time. And I think that sort of hit home when I was doing all this other stuff. I was like, I don't have to do all that in order to, get myself ingrained in the business.
So you came back to Chicago. You were doing Tourca and whatnot. But then at some point, our paths crossed in Los Angeles, where I was there for a year and change, and you were out there too.
Kansas Studs.
What, Kansas Studs? Yes.
Kansas Studs, yes.
Oh, what a solid sketch.
That was so solid.
What a memory.
So solid. That was for the Magic Johnson show, or?
For Magic, what's it, Sinbad?
Yeah, it might have been.
Might have been,
it was
yeah.
Something. It was a great sketch.
That's
but
right.
We were out there.
You were there
together.
Right, but you were out. I went there. I was with a partner, and she got a job out there, and we went out there. And then you were out there as well. And who were you living with? Someone we knew?
I got Adrian Wenner's old apartment.
Right.
Oh, first I crashed on people's couches like Jay Johnson, and
right.
And then but then I started to live there. So I was like living half in LA, half in London.
Had you already done stuff in London at that point?
No, this was like, I had done festivals and stuff, but this was around 2000, right?
This was around 1996, 7, I think. 97. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was late 1990s, and that's when I was just sort of living in LA, pretty much. And then we met up, of course.
And wrote that phenomenal King of the Hill pilot.
Oh, the King of the Hill pilot. Remember, I'd be like, you'd be like a method writer, because we were writing about golf and how because Tiger Woods was so successful and everything. And you went, I go, let's work on the outline. You go, we've got to go golfing right now. It was like method. You wanted to experience golf so we could write about it.
I don't know. My method might have been procrastination. But I remember we were putting together a Conan packet, and I just talked to Glazer a couple of weeks ago, and we told Holney about it, and Glazer was over at Holney's for a barbecue, and he's like, where's Ali and Rich? I thought they were coming. He's like, I think they're working on this Conan packet. And then Glazer was like, I'll see you later.
Really?
And then he took off and went and put the packet together, and he got the job.
We inadvertently spurred somebody on.
That's right.
Or we should not have told anybody we were doing the Conan packet.
It would have changed the course of our lives. Not to say we would have got the gig, but it would have been a whole different life.
Yes. But the secrecy in the long run helps.
Maybe. I guess that's what you learn. It's like, zip it. Loose lips sink ships.
But the way I look at it is that, if they like it, they like a packet, they like a packet. And I thought we had a solid one.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get it.
But if it happened.
Did we do a Kimmel one too? Did we do a Kimmel one?
No, Kimmel wasn't around yet.
Oh, yeah.
Kimmel wasn't around yet. But so you're in London and you're in LA and you're going back and forth. At what point do all of a sudden you start getting these gigs like the Mighty Boosh, where you are like, you're making, Monty Python, modern Monty Python-esque television?
Well, so what happens around that time? I was in London, doing gigs. Like, London's a great town to do gigs in, like New York. It's like you can go up anytime. And then there was this channel called Paramount UK They were looking for new shows, and I just went and took a meeting. I said, "Hey, I'll do whatever. Do you have a sketch show?" And you go, "Yeah. You want to be in it?" And that was when I met the Mighty Boosh guys. They were in the same sketch show, and we did that, and then they said, "We've got this idea for a show about a zoo, and it's got a lot of weird characters," and then that's how I got involved, and that we started doing that in '98, I think. '98, we started doing that in theaters all over, and then we went to Edinburgh, and then it kind of took off. But the problem was the show was so unstructured. People looked at the show and they go, "Well, yeah, I love the show, but what are we going to do with it?" That I think it took us doing a radio show, like in a half-hour format, that people finally understood, like, oh, this is a show. So that was 2000. We did the radio show, and then it's sort of in the 2000s. I just spent a lot more time over there with the Boosh and stuff.
And the radio show, it's a scripted half-hour radio show.
Yes, which was what was good, because a lot of times we would mess around, and because you did the scripted, I think executives they got a little bit more comforted by that, that it was a regular show.
And at that time, British television, BBC type stuff, is The Office and, Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, have they already appeared and doing their thing?
They were around the same time. Yeah. I remember being around and everybody was talking about it. And initially it wasn't even that, it wasn't that popular. And they were gonna can it. And then they replayed it in the summer. And it was like ripples in the ocean, in the pond. You get the ripples going, and people were already talking about it. Then it just exploded the second time. That's why, a lot of shows are like that, right? Like Seinfeld wouldn't have been as popular if it had been cut. No, I mean, Seinfeld, they kept it going so that it could get an audience.
Right. But BBC, they make like 6 episodes of something. That's a season?
Usually 6. But when we did the first Boosh one, we got 8. So it's not like set in stone, but they just did 8. And the beauty of it too is they don't cancel you in the middle of a run. They will you go the full run. So yeah, it did really well, and then we toured, and that loads of stuff happened after that, which was great. And then it was a good time in comedy. Like there are little bits and spurts of times you can point to where comedy just, especially in the UK. I mean, here it's the same way, but it's like they're always cranking out something here, so you'll have a good show. But here it's like channels. Sometimes, like Paramount UK in like '97 had this show Spaced with Edgar Wright directed it, and Simon Pegg was in it, and Sacha Baron Cohen had his first gig there, I think. TV gig, and just all these shows. Dave Williams and Matt Lucas had a show. So it was like, it takes a really good programmer, commissioner to commission all these shows. And then just after that year with all those shows, and then our sketch show as well, then after that it just closed up. They go, we're not making any money. Let's just show old Frasier reruns and stuff. So then it was like, the next time was when this is boring.
I'm here to listen. I have questions, but I'm here to listen.
A channel called BBC Three that opened up, and they commissioned all these shows. They commissioned the Boosh. It's like you've got to take risks. Like they had a lot of flops, but they also had a lot of great shows, because if you don't take a risk, you're not gonna succeed as at high a level as you could, I think. And so, what was your initial question?
I don't know, but I was in London this past summer, and I really enjoyed my time there. I really liked it. You know, I went to the Churchill, War Room, saw Shakespeare, theater. So it must have been fun to be in London and just be doing television and have money in your pocket and hanging around with cool, funny people.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even thinking. That was the thing, though. I was just being a part of it all. And it wasn't until now or, after you leave, you sort of think about, wow, that was a cool experience and everything. But I was just looking at, like, I wanted to do gigs. I wanted to do comedy. I met loads of great people. It was fun. And I was just going with it. I was riding a wave. And
but I mean,
those times are rare. I'm looking back on it. It's like that was kind of a rare time, because now it's all about, it's family and stuff.
But to have the wherewithal to know that a wave is there and to catch that wave, a lot of people never catch a wave their whole life, and you had the wherewithal to catch that wave in Chicago, in the early 90s. Then you caught another wave that, took you out to the UK, so, but were you writing the whole time? I mean, did you have a process where you wrote daily, or when you got, booked on a show, you'd put together a bit?
I like to get what you call a block of time.
Right. You need it. You need a solid block of time.
When I was out there, I was only writing. I wasn't really writing too much in terms of like, scripts per se. I was writing bits. I was writing jokes. And a lot of the Boosh just comes out of rehearsal. So all of that stuff comes out of, improv and stuff like that. And then I got commissioned. The beauty out there that I liked too was when you pitch a show over here, they go, we love the idea. Now let's get a staff together and let's put it together. All these people become involved. Whereas in the UK, you'd pitch a show and they go, okay, when are you going to write this? And it's like, what? So you literally write all 6 episodes. So me and Matt Berry wrote the sketch show together, Snuffbox. And so we were like, we controlled the whole thing, which was great. So I was writing that, and so I didn't really have a set process. I probably should have had more of a process, but not until later did I start doing that.
So in the Mighty Boosh, when they do something where, like, walk into your office and then you start dancing, where does that come from?
Well,
rehearsal?
Well, yeah, we rehearsed lots of bits, but that wasn't even rehearsed. It was just from the filming. We filmed something, and that's the key with the director would let you do stuff like that. We filmed the scene, and it just seemed a little bit like there just needed to be a little bit of a thing going on. And I thought, do you mind if I just do one more take of me, like, dancing before this? And then, so we did it, and then it just, it worked. But it's like, that's the key, is like when you feel something and you're allowed to do it, that's what's so good. So I think it fueled a lot of good scenes in the show when you were allowed to try different things like that.
So the Mighty Boosh guys saw you doing stuff in London, and then they were like, hey, we want to work with this guy.
Well, we were just all cast together in the sketch show.
Snuffbox.
No, it's called Unnatural Acts.
Uh-huh.
And another guy that's in it was a Canadian guy, Sean Cullen, who's really funny. And we found ourselves all sort of commiserating because everybody else didn't have quite the same sense of humor. So we were like, oh, okay. Like I would say stuff in the writer's room that would make them laugh. Like somebody would tell a joke and I go, okay. And then they would laugh at that. So we were like sort of kindred spirits, so to speak. And then we just joked around, we hung out, blah, 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 you know.
A title like Snuffbox, who comes up with a title for Snuffbox as a sketch show?
Well, we were actually filming the show, and because we still didn't have a title yet, and we were just throwing out stuff. And somebody mentioned horse box. No, it was a scene where there was a snuff box. And I had said horse box just randomly. And then when the snuff box was on the desk, the director said snuff box. But I had thought of it too. And so I'd like to say I thought of it, but the director said it first. But yeah, it just sort of randomly came out, you know.
While you were there, you wrote the book 97 Subversive Acts.
Yeah, Tiny Acts of Rebellion.
Tiny Acts of Rebellion, which is interesting because I was watching some, you know, like I said, I never looked you up or Wikipedia'd you or Googled you, and I watched some videos, and it's interesting because it's, you know, the idea is that, like, I unbuckle my belt in the airplane once the plane lands and it's coasting. I'm like, okay, where did it come to you to do something like that and to have the wherewithal to write it and get it published?
Well, it sort of came in that this publishing company had was looking for like comedians and stuff to write books and stuff. It was not a huge publishing house, but they go, and so I thought I'll pitch them some ideas. But the one idea that kept sticking out in my head, because I had already thought of, I wrote down little things that I would do, you know, to, you know, like flick somebody off under the table where they couldn't see you, things like that. So I thought, why don't I write a bunch of those and put them into a book? And so that's what I did. And it really didn't take that long to write. I mean, because it's a list book, you know, you just crank out. You had deadlines and stuff. I really am better with deadlines because, you know how that is.
Yeah, sure. As Duke Ellington said, I don't need time. What I need is a deadline.
Yeah.
You know, so I hope nobody's, you know, that's the best Duke Ellington I can do. So you stay in England for a bit, right?
Yeah.
And then, but some point, and again, I don't know the last time we spoke on the phone. I mean, we've texted or emailed here and there throughout the years, but a pretty large chunk of time has gone by, but it seems like yesterday.
We saw each other when I would come back periodically. Yeah. And then when did you get to New York? When did you go back?
I got to New York in August of '99. I came to write for SNL for the 25th anniversary season, and I've stayed since then. Right. Except for
I saw you when you came to visit LA and a couple of times. I saw you.
Yeah. But at what point did you leave England and go to LA and start there?
Well, because I had always kind of kept a place and, you know, kind of gone back and forth. And then when the Bush took off, I sort of stayed out there really until 2013 because I stayed over there. Well, and then because I got married, And then I thought, oh, well, she was English. And I was like, well, I'm happy to stay here and stuff. And she goes, let's go out there. Because it was just sort of like, it's weird. When you go to another place, stuff starts happening in the place you just left. Sometimes it's weird. So I had got a call from a manager that wanted to sign me up in LA. And it was like a lot of things combined where, we were about to go to Australia. I was doing Tiny Acts of Rebellion, the show. So I was going to perform it in Australia in 2013. So we just said, why don't we, instead of asking for a round trip flight, why don't they pay for the leg from Australia to LA? And then we'll just go to LA, clean slate. We get all our stuff out, and that's what we did. It wasn't like a long planning part, but it just seemed right.
So a show like Tiny Acts of Rebellion going to Australia, how long a show is it? Is it just you? I mean, it's amazing to me that you've been able to do so much traveling via doing your craft.
Yeah, I mean, those festival circuits, some people do them all the time. Like, Rich Hall, he's out there all the time doing Australia and New Zealand because it's just such a really cool environment. So if you come up with a show, I mean, I did Edinburgh like 9 times, and I had several different shows. I wrote some shows, and then you would just do them, and then you'd write another one, and then go on the circuit again. And so it was really cool. And I had I had written the Tiny Act show, but I was like, this was great because we were going to Australia, and then it was like, okay, then I can, okay. So I wrote it, and there's like one person that's in the show as well for a sort of an assistant. So sometimes when I was like overseas, I would hire somebody locally to do that part and stuff.
How long a show was it? Like, how long a show do you need to tour?
Well, since they book these shows like in slots, like all night, so there'll be a venue and there'll be like 6 to 7, 7 to 8. It shouldn't go longer than an hour. So usually if you've got about a 50-minute show, that's pretty good. Sometimes I would always go a bit long, but yeah.
You're getting a little muffled here. There you go. They'd say about an hour, but 50 minutes was probably the best because then people could leave and then other people could come in. It's interesting because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Well, I always wanted to do like an Edinburgh, or Australia, and I was like, oh, it's too late. I should have done it when I was younger. And then I'm like, how much do you got? How long has it got to be? And
bring the family out. It's got to be, because they book slots in an hour. It's got to be a little less than an hour. And I'll tell you, less is better because the shows that ran about 50 minutes were usually much tighter. And I always noticed, it's weird, every time I wrote a show, like when I was performing it on stage, there'd be that little moment, and it would be, every time it would be like 40 minutes where it'd be like, okay, this is where you have to really, like spin it to the end, like really get ahead of steam, because that's the moment where everybody could check out. It's a potential checkout time.
So you're saying if someone did 40 or 45 minutes, they'd be fine with that?
Yeah, or 50 is probably ideal. But when you write one and it goes to 45, it's usually longer with, if you get laughs. And,
right. So for me, maybe an hour 5, hour 10.
Yes. Yes.
And would you go back to Edinburgh or Australia?
Yeah, absolutely.
You would?
I'd love to bring the family out and stuff. Yeah. But it's like, it's not as like I'd love to write a show and do it, but it would be like putting your energy into something else that I'm already putting myself into other things right now, but if there will be a time when I will do that again.
So I saw you on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which you had a phenomenal scene. How does stuff like that start happening in LA for you? You have agent out there, a manager, you start just going on auditions?
Yeah, just going on auditions. And I was kind of like, because Curb ended for a while, had like a respite for about 5 years. And I was thinking like, because all of our friends, were in it and stuff. And I was like, oh, I missed the boat on that. I missed the boat. And then just out of the blue, I got a call for an audition. And, I knew Jeff Garland from Chicago. You knew Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so it was easy. When I went to the audition, Jeff goes, this guy, he's great, blah, blah, blah. He was selling me to, Larry. And so that happened. It just sort of just happened. But it's like, that's the thing. You just got to keep doing it. Right?
And so those scenes are improvised. You get a kind of like, here's where we want to start, here's where we want to go, but then you get to do your thing.
They always have it. This is how you start and this is how you end. And usually the rest is pretty much improvised. Yeah. So, which I find a little bit of comfort in that, because you know where it's going to go, and all you got to do is just, play the scene out. Like we used to do. And and then it would be like if he laughed, if Larry laughed or Jeff laughed, they would go, keep that, do that again. And so gradually you'd be kind of writing the scene as it goes along. And then it'd be over. Or you kept trying new things. That's what I like to do, is keep trying new things, and then if something hits, that's great. It was really like, I thought it would be awful to do because I don't know, I was just nervous and everything, but it was so much fun. Everybody was like supportive and into it, and they all,
I think that's just right in your wheelhouse. You're smart, funny, but to know your beginning and end, the middle is your sandwich, and here's the slices of bread to, be the bread or whatever. I just think it was just so fun. It's always fun to see friends, do stuff that you didn't know they were in something. But when I saw you pop up in that Curb Your Enthusiasm, I was just like, yes, the comedy gods.
But it's like, what's weird is sometimes you get hired and you're like, they go, oh, you're an improviser, right? And so they rely on you solely to come up with everything. And that, I don't like that, because it puts too much onus on you. Whereas if it's a show like, Curb, where it's like, beat it out, then it's like, it's just so much easier. It's like, you can't rely on that to just come up with, like a blank slate. Like, you're in a farm, do something funny.
But are they doing that in shows out there? Or, when you go in for a sitcom or something, or a TV show?
This would be more like some shows I did in England, and then some like, a short, or somebody that you're doing a favor for, they might go, we know that you're funny, so they come to the table with that, and then they go, this is just you two talking, and that's it. It's not a sitcom. No, it would never be like a sitcom.
I remember we had an idea once. I can't remember, where I had gone to China, to Beijing, to become the burrito king of Beijing, because I found out there was no burritos in Beijing, and you were still in LA, and you flew back to get me to come back for one big pitch meeting. Or maybe
And
that was
this is the idea that I initially thought it would be a little bit more of a, like a Nebraska type thing, but it's like the guy, I'm not doing very well, but I'm pitching something, and then something accidentally comes out that we used to do together, and they loved it. They said, you got to do this, and I'm at the end of my rope, so it's like, get this guy in the pitch meeting and blah, blah, blah. So that's when I go to find you, and we had not been, we'd been, had split up, and so we hadn't been in touch. And then I have to go find you. And then it's the journey on the way back, because there'd be a lot of unresolved things and blah, blah, blah. And you're the burrito king now.
Burrito King of Beijing.
Yes. So I have to deal with that and convince you to come back.
Wow. I mean, it sounds fun, shoot scenes in, China and Beijing, and then, flying here in the planes, trains, and automobiles of getting back to LA,
Yes.
and then going into the meeting to pitch it, and maybe it kind of ends there like Inception, where you don't know what happens, but, they walk into that room to pitch the meeting. Maybe
there's a time element too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to throw in a ticking clock, right?
Oh, well, yeah. Without it, there's nothing. If there's no deadline or time, there's a reason it's got to be done by this point.
Now, if we were writing this, you would go, we got to go to China.
Well, yeah, but you've got to. I'd say, look, we've got to go to Beijing to do some research and just, walk around and see if there's a burrito place yet.
While we're there, let's just play some golf. You gotta. I mean, it was just, God, I was so clueless. I still am. I'm still clueless. But now, with this, oh my God, with this pandemic, what we did in 18 years in New York City could be gone. It probably is. What's going on with the theater?
Well, I mean, I just got my third rent bill for places that haven't been open since March 12th. And landlords just, they didn't get the memo of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So
when it hit me, Ollie, that you were like a force to be reckoned with in New York and stuff, and you had just been, like, I was hanging out with Kristen Shaw and Kurt Bromholler and in England, in London, and we were just hanging out and having fun. And I said, so where did you start out in New York? She goes, Pitt. And I was like, oh man, it's come to that where you're like, people have gone through the whole cycle and are like making it and just doing stuff, and you're creating all of this stuff.
Well, I remember that night where I had an artistic director, a great young man named Neil Van Kerkhove. And whenever I spoke to a new artistic director, I said, look, your directive is to find people in this theater, in this community, and put them together. Create shows out of this toy box. He was like, okay. So one night at a party, he heard Kurt say, I want to do a variety show. I just don't know how to. And then on the other side of the theater, he heard Kristen say, you know what? I'd love to be able to do some kind of variety type show. And then he literally brought them together, and he said, hey, I just heard you say this at the party, and you said this at the party. You guys should talk. So
That's
Neil Van Kerkhove brought them together that night at the party and told them, you just literally, both of you said the same thing. And that's how Hot Tub started. So I mean,
basically, eavesdropping is what caused that to happen.
You're muffling out a little bit. Yeah. Eavesdropping, but also just telling folks who work for you, work with you, put people together, come up with show ideas. I mean, that's what we're here for. We got an empty space, a little loft on the second floor of a building built in 1900. Might as well use it.
Also, not forcing people to do, like, we're doing a variety show and you're going to be in this. It's like they wanted to do a variety show. So it's in their wheelhouse, and you're just facilitating that.
Now, let me ask you this. If I could wave a magic wand and give you the from the next chapter of your dreams in terms of a movie, a TV show, a vehicle, what would it be if I could wave a magic wand?
Candace Stokes.
Of course, boom. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Magic wand. Okay.
Would it be a TV show? Would it be movies once or twice a year? Would you be number 1 on the call sheet, or do you want to be number 4 on the call sheet? Is it filmed in LA? What does that world look like for you? When I talk to my friend Fred Weller, he and I went to college together. He's done a lot of film and television. I said, do you want to be in a fake cop, a fake lawyer, a fake doctor show? And he said, well, my parents were both lawyers in New Orleans, so I think I would like to be a DA in a procedural in New York City, so I get to live in New York with my family. But the fake set is a law show.
Yes.
And at some point MASH said let's do Korea, and Cheers said let's do a bar.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think I'd love to be.
Are you multitasking right now? What's happening here? Are you?
Sorry.
You changing a diaper? Or what's happening?
No. Sorry, I'm just pacing. Sorry. I would love to do not a sitcom, not like your usual sitcom and stuff. I just want to do, with the advent of new media and stuff, I want to do something like a Netflix show where you're in it and you're having a hand in the writing, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be one on the call sheet, but it's just that idea of creating it and doing it and sort of letting people, not having strings attached and people on the set and, in suits. And I've just heard so many good things about Netflix experience and stuff.
Let me give you an example. I talked to Pat Finn yesterday, and he had an idea for himself where he's a newscaster in Chicago. He was a former famous punter on the Chicago Bears who had a 99-yard punt that rolled. And then Tim Meadows plays his buddy on the show. Bonnie Hunt plays his sister, and then a 10-year-old from a relationship he didn't know he had shows up, and is raising her. So aside from Netflix being a great, that's what I'm saying. Aside from Netflix being a phenomenal place to work, that keeps their hands off, that gives you the right to be an auteur, what would be your specific frame or vehicle in the show for you?
All right, this is something that I was thinking about. It's just a show. It's a funny show. It's silly, and I was pitching this with Dave Hill, and we're campus police at a small, liberal arts college, and we're just campus police, and it's just the whole experience of being at a small school, not like the big time police where they'll taser you and stuff. It's just and just having loads of friends and stuff in the show, so you can have guest stars and stuff like yourself, like your good self, and just be able to and have it sort of beat it out. Have all the go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Have everything beat it out and not strictly like Curb, but have it scripted, but with the ability to improvise and stuff.
Well, it's so funny because Dave Hill, when I've worked with him a couple of times, we spent some time together at, I can't remember, some festival or something. But I just thought he reminded me so much of you that I almost thought he could be your brother from another mother. And maybe the thing could have something where you guys went to this school, you didn't graduate, or you were athletes there, or something happened at this school. I don't know if a community college, but I see segways, I see riding mountain bikes, I see,
Well, we did have it so that Dave grew up in the town where the college is. So he's just kind of going through life. And I'm an aspiring, like, I want to be a cop, but I'm really, really, you know, a klutz. And
I
so,
like
yeah,
that.
and that's how I met. That's how I met Dave Hill. It's like everybody goes, you should meet Rich Fulcher, to him. And everybody said to me, you should meet Dave Hill. And it almost became sort of like a blind date. Like it became too forced, so that when we met the first time, it was like, yeah, okay, hey, everybody says we should, you know, forcing the electricity of the moment to come by. But after a while, we kept running into each other. And then we were like, let's do something together. So just sort of happened.
I like the idea that he's from the town too, because it gives it kind of a towns and gowns feel. You know, when you've got a college town, you've got the people who, you know, they wear their graduation gowns, and then there's the people from the town.
Exactly.
And I like
he's
that.
Like a bit of a. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm writing this down.
Please.
You know, he's like the townie that never left, and so he's very relaxed with the students. Like he'll give some of the townies their beer at the bonfire. He won't enforce it, whereas I'm like, you gotta stop that.
I also like the idea of maybe you guys, he has, to you know, use everybody's toolbox. There's a band, and on like Friday nights, you guys play, you know, or he plays, and there's a small band element that people get to come and watch. And maybe someone he used to go out with is now married to one of the professors at the university or one of the coaches.
That's good.
You know,
that is a great idea.
It's always thrown in his face about the person who was like his prom date, who, you know, she went off to college. He stayed to go to college in this town but didn't graduate, and then ultimately ended up being one of the head of campus police. But I also think, you know, you wanting to be a full-fledged cop in the town is a great element to have. You know, where you're always studying for it, you're always doing push-ups where you can and trying to do pull-ups, but you haven't been able to hit the pull-up mark, you know.
yeah, that's great. Because we initially had the love interest of somebody that's there, I think is great. Because we just had sort of a burgeoning crush, but the fact that she grew up in the town too and became, you know, higher up, and that they're kind of the laughing stock, I think is a great element. We had it where Dave's dad is like really kind of, he's very successful. And so Dave hasn't lived up to that. Yeah.
And who do you see playing some of the other roles? Who would you put in there to be other kind of characters in the show?
Well, we were thinking like a Chris Elliott, somebody like the Dean. You know what? We had talked about Fred Willard, but
rest in peace.
Yeah, that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
But like that whole group of people, like you know, the Mary Holland is great. She's you know, like people that are up and coming and very funny and my mind's going blank about further people, but there's, you know, tons of people. We would definitely write in elements each week where new people would come in and do guest bits and stuff.
You know, I think Glendale would be a great place to film it. I mean, it's a beautiful community near LA. See if there's some school or whatever that you could use as like the, you know, location backdrop. I really enjoyed it.
Great idea.
I loved Glendale. I went out there to Glendale for something. Oh, Rich Tellerico. I went to visit Rich Tellerico, and he lived out in Glendale, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And it wasn't that far away from L.A., and, you know, this was in the B.C. world, though, before Corona. And I just thought, wow, I could see living here and then doing stuff in L.A. because prior to the Corona, I was like, maybe I should try to do something in L.A. because I.O. closed down and there's so many people out there, and I guess this is what I can do to help is open up spaces. But now I've been so burned by bricks and mortar. I'm just like, I don't know if I could sign another lease without a pandemic clause.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. You know what was funny is we had some sort of a deal with somebody that it was a very tight budget. So we had, there was a place in like Staten Island that we were thinking about, because it was like New York was definitely cheaper. There's a tax situation.
Well, I mean, that's up to you, but to me, it's like your family's right there. You're in, near LA.
Yeah.
Why do you want to move across the country? It's like,
Dude,
I don't know.
yeah, no, that was suggested to us. So, but I mean, we could have worked it, I'm sure. We were in that stage, but then it went south.
I think look, because you've done, British television, BBC, and now television is changing from 22 episodes, 7 years of syndication. Maybe it is just a 10 episode arc and it goes a year or two or three.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but it's like we, as a nation, have grown up on TV. So we can tell right away when a show jumps the shark,
mm-hmm.
right? But
mm-hmm.
it's like if the show ends or you have an ending to it, I think it gives it a sort of movie-like quality to it. Also, like being able to kill off main characters and things like that, it really mixes it up and stuff. So, I mean, I know every agent wants you to sell a show that's going to go for 10 years, but I think that's almost going to be a thing of the past soon.
Yeah, I mean, little by little, I think that, the world of a show being 22 episodes and 7 years in syndication and going a while, I mean, I don't think they'll go away immediately, but I don't know if they'll be the vehicle that people ride in to, take the next chapter. And I think, the same way that people aren't going to work a job for 30 years anymore, they're going to have a job for a year, 3 years, 5 years, and go to another job. I think it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had to give advice to a young Rich Fulcher, or the young Rich Fulcher who may listen to this, if I figure out how to, record it, post it, and all that, what would you say to, a young person who's, starting out doing this?
Ooh, that's good. Well, I always find, like, you look at shows and stuff, and you look at it like, I can see why these guys are together, because they probably started out together and they did stuff together and they knew each other. Like, same thing in New York and LA is like, be aware that the people you hang out with and have fun with are the ones you're most likely to, do a show with. I mean, it's a much better cohesive element to it. If you do that, then say, I want to work with Alec Guinness. You know what I mean? Like, you can do that, I mean, eventually, but, why make it hard for yourself? Do the thing you want to do with the people you like now, and then things will happen from that. It won't happen if you just are constantly like trying to move up in some, I don't know, it's the age-old thing, like, what's the better way to do it? Do it on your own and slowly with people you like, or do a big, like, join Warner Brothers and work your way up to the top over time. I prefer just, doing what you want to do, and then good things will happen from that.
Do you keep in touch with the Mighty Boosh boys?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we're always talking about doing something, but, it's kind of difficult schedule-wise. But it's like, now it becomes with time, you know, it's like getting that one tattoo. It's like, what's that tattoo going to be? So it's like, what is the thing we're going to do that's going to be, you know, whereas when we first did it, it was just to have fun and everything. So it's now we're conscious of it. So I think we should just do something.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like I didn't want to let perfect get in the way of good. Because if in the BC world, if I were to do something like this, I would have been like, I got to fly to LA. I got to make sure my sound equipment is set up. I want to get Rich some gifts, maybe get a, you know, and I would never, I never would have done it, you know, because in New York, I live, you know, Rachel and I live near each other. Janine Garofalo lives near me, you know, but I never pulled the trigger because I didn't want to bother them. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to make sure the sound was just right. And then once this virus happened, it gave me permission to be bad, to be imperfect. And, you know, when you listen to this thing, and I've listened to them, you can hear me and the other person you can hear, but it's like you're eavesdropping in on a conversation.
Yeah,
on a phone call.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, just get out of your own way, because it was really, I mean, as this thing, and it's still unfolding, but the early days of the virus in New York, there was a level of denial.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to go away. Everything will be back to normal. This isn't that bad. And then little by little, I was like, oh, my gosh, this is a big deal. And then I felt a need to make something, to be a maker, you know.
Yeah.
And somehow, you know, I was like, Kevin McDonald and I always got along. I really like Kevin, and, you know, we've always had fun together. And I said, will you talk to me on the phone? And then once I got Kevin, then other people, then I was willing to put my heart out there. And like I said, some people get back to me and go, yeah, let's do it. And then some people, you know, maybe they went to a wrong email. Maybe, you know, they don't want to do it, or they're busy. But I've done, you know, 17 of them.
Wow. I think it's a great idea. And, you know, if you edit this down to like 5 minutes, it'll be great.
I was thinking like 3.5.
Okay, yeah, 3.5.
Just the high points, just a 3-minute kind of nice, you know.
Yeah. That's a good bit.
And put it out. I don't, you know, I got to figure it out. But to me, it's like, you know, like I talked to Pat Finn yesterday, and we talked for like 2+ hours. And I was like, I don't even know if this is recorded. I don't know if I'm going to get it out. But, I mean, when am I going to get the chance to talk to Pat Finn for 2.5 hours? You know, Neil Flynn and I talked for 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, Sharna and I talked for 3 hours.
What?
Yeah, because, I mean, again, I just get on the phone and go, look, let's just talk. And wherever it goes, it goes. And I usually don't talk this much. Usually I just listen. But, you know, because I know you.
So this is the question I have to you about Sharna. Do you still have the free drink pass?
I'm going to send you a picture of it.
No, but I mean, could you still use it if you went into her new place?
Oh, yeah, because she knows I don't drink. I haven't drank in almost 20 years. But you were there that morning. We were in Sharna's hotel room in Los Angeles, and I said, Sharna, if I give you an idea and you like it, can I get free drinks at all IOs forever? She's like, yeah, what's the idea? What's the idea? And I think the idea, if I remember, was basically a delivery service where people went to the grocery store, picked up your food in a vehicle, and then dropped it off at your house.
Wow.
And she was like, you got it. And I made her just sign this ripped piece of paper from the LA Weekly.
Yes.
But I'm going to look for it on my phone and send it to you. But then ultimately I stopped drinking, so I mean, I really couldn't use it the way, like, if I was like, can I give this to Miles? She's like, absolutely not. You can't give it to Miles. It's yours only.
I know another idea you came up with, which I think should have been implemented, was remember when you said when people come from Chicago to LA and like they don't have a place, there should be like a flop house, like an improv flop house that people can just stay at, free rent, do some IO. Do you remember this?
Yeah. But it's also
nice,
when I hear that, I'm like, maybe I get a place in LA, and this is part of like the LA pit. There's a flop house.
The pit flop house. Why not? That's your way of sort of, you know, easing into it. I love it.
Well, My wife would probably be like, unless it's bringing in some money, you going to LA, don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
But I also
She
had this
doesn't
idea.
need to know.
She doesn't need it. She doesn't want it. She wants to be like, show me the money. But the thing in LA the idea I had is if I got like one of those large Mercedes-Benz Sprinters, you know what I'm talking about? They're like the large vans.
Yes.
And outfitted them with 4 really nice chairs and like an espresso machine and air conditioning and comfortable, and you just had mobile meetings where you went and picked up people for pitch meetings and whatever meetings. And instead of sitting down for the meeting, you just drove around in this beautiful vehicle.
I'll take it one step further. You could even have, do auditions in there, or just people do part of their act if you wanted to book them in a club or something.
Well, it's funny. I used to have this bit of private theater where at some point it's going to get to a place where people are going to have so much money that they'd pay $25,000 a person to watch Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken do a scene from Small Wonder.
Yes.
And
yes.
It would be 4 people, $25,000 each, and they would do 45 minutes of scenes from whatever you wanted.
Well, they're already doing like stand-up at people's houses and stuff, and also like a lot of entertainers now are like on their website. They're putting little extras onto like instead of buying T-shirts and stuff, it's like if you're 9 Inch Nails, it's like you can play golf with me for $2,000. Or something like that. And if people want it, they'll pay for it.
It's amazing. I saw I looked up your website right before we chatted, and that's super cool. But did someone do that in LA or in London?
In London, yeah.
And so richfulcher.com, someone watches over it out of London.
Nobody watches over it, no. That's the problem.
So it's there. If someone wants you, they go to that, and it's enough information for now to,
I've got to update it.
But I gotta think everybody in the business knows you, at this point. No, but I mean, you're like one of those guys, like the most famous person that people don't know type person, where, both in UK and Australia and in Los Angeles now, people know Rich Fulcher.
I'm the guy you might get if you don't want to pay too much.
Mm-hmm. It's when I talked to Richard Kind, I said, Richard, you've been doing this a long time. What's your secret, Richard? He goes, I'll do anything, any job. You make me an offer and I'll do it. But that's why I don't get paid that much, because they know I want to work.
That's a good kind.
He's the best. He's the best. We talked for a couple hours. Such a good guy. But that's, I'm learning things along the way from this too, where I'm like, too many times I let my ego get in the way, where you want to be the guy who says, I'm not going to do it unless I get this, and what about this deal? And it's like, who cares? Just work.
Yeah, like Michael Caine.
Michael Caine, I'll do anything. You just pretend you're someone else. They won't know. That was his acting. Do you ever see his acting tapes where he was just like literally copy another actor? Look at one eye and copy someone else. And see, when you're doing it, they're not going to be able to tell that you're putting on a show from the 1940s.
Yeah. Oh, you got to watch Pete Serafinowicz's show. If you haven't seen it, he does a takeoff on the.
Spell it again for me.
Pete Serafinowicz. Don't ask. SERAFINOWICZ.
Okay, I'll find it.
So good. But he's got that Depression era mentality, right? Where he's like, when I grew up, I had to take what I could get. So he doesn't turn down anything because he's got that innate fear, like he'll never get another job.
You need that. In a way, you need a combination of humility, hunger, and just, you want to work. Yeah,
because I was like, I'm kind of in this writing mode now because I'm writing for this. Well, I just wrote for this animation thing. So it's like this whole world of animation is starting to come up, and doing voiceovers and stuff, which is great. But
are you at liberty to say what show?
Oh, Disenchantment.
Okay,
I wrote for that in the past 4 years. I've written for it twice, and yeah, it's great. And knowing a lot of animators and stuff really it's great, because there's so much going on. But I mean, some people, you got to be able to adjust, I guess.
I mean, and animation may be one of the things that ends up becoming bulletproof, where it's just you write it, they animate it, you record the voices. Because, I mean, I don't even see how you're going to be on a set for the next 6 months to a year.
Production has not missed a beat with animation. If you got a show, pitch it.
It's interesting because I'm always like thinking now, what's bulletproof? And so few things are bulletproof, and you can't like decide. Like grocery stores have become bulletproof. They are making, they're packed. People are buying them out.
Liquor stores.
Liquor stores are doing really well. Pizza places, Domino's, Papa John's, But maybe animation.
Yeah. No, seriously. It's the thing right now.
I mean, would you be willing to do the show that you and Dave Hill show, Towns and Gowns? Would you do that animated?
Yes, I would.
Mm-hmm.
I would. Yeah, in fact, that's a good idea, because, I mean, all the shows which you were thinking about live, why not just do animated?
Right. Because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know either. The world has shaken us to awaken us.
Yes, it has. We're ready for something new.
I don't know what's going to happen, because, like, I was up till March 10th. March 10th is when all of a sudden I was like, uh-oh. And March 12th is when they were like, nobody's allowed to run a business. It started getting weird in the early part of March. And March 10th is when things really slowed down to a point of like, this isn't sustainable. I don't think I would have done the things I've done since then, because I was like, I got to do something. I can't come out of this quarantine with nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I've been trying to write down my, because years from now, people will be asking you, like, your kids or grandkids will go, what's it like? What was it like during that time? Because this is our World War II. Because we're all suffering together, and it's kind of like, what did you do during that time?
Where prior to the virus, where did you get up on stage?
Here?
Yeah. Like, are there places now? Where do you go to get up on stage anymore out
I don't do much improv at all. I mean, I know Miles has a place out there. I.O. shot. I don't really. I've just been out of the improv scene, but I do stand up occasionally. Like, I'll do Neil Hamburger's show at the Satellite once in a while, or I'll do stand up once in a while. But right now I haven't really focused on that. I'd love to do something.
Well, I mean, I'd love to see you again someday in the real world. I'm sure you probably got the kids and the wife are like, what are you doing for this amount of time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry but I appreciate so much you giving me the most valuable thing, which is your time. And how I just feel so lucky to be able to count you as friend. And I think you're the funniest, nicest person out there, and you deserve all the best the world has to offer.
Oh, thank you. And
thank you, Rich.
Right back at you. And you know what? I haven't just given you time. I've given you a block of time.
There's nothing more valuable than having a block of time with somebody to make some magic.
Exactly.
And I hope you're able to get many blocks of time to sit down and make content and write and create.
You too. And you've got to put this up.
Eventually, I'll figure it out. But to me, it's already benefited me. Just talking to you on the phone has been great to catch up. And please say hi to anybody who remembers me out there. And I'll try to give you a call, more often.
I will. Yeah, let's just talk. Yeah, absolutely. Also, don't be afraid to delegate for this. Delegate production and stuff like that.
Right. I do. I need a tech person who's just like,
yes,
I like this. I
need
get what you're
full-time
doing.
tech person.
I know. If I had one person to help me with YouTube, website, voiceover, podcast.
How many times during the day have you been slipped up? Like you got a list of 5 things to do, and the first thing, the tech goes wrong, and you're like, shit, the whole thing's gone.
Right. I remember when I was doing this, Michael Shannon, Academy Award 2-time nominee and friend of mine. Again, not name dropping, but I dropped something. Let me pick it up. No,
met
but
him in Chicago. Yeah,
he's phenomenal. But when we were talking, it cut out like 2 or 3 times. The app just stopped, and I had to call him back. And didn't miss a beat. Got right back into talking about it. His kids were in the background. It was like that wouldn't have happened. I would have to talk to Michael. I would have tried to make it perfect. Let's get a studio. Let me rent something. What do you want to eat? Can I get something to drink?
Don't let perfect get in the way
of good.
That's what you said. Yeah,
that's right. And it's been good talking to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, man.
I look forward to meeting your family someday.
Yes, absolutely. Tell me when you're coming out.
I'll try to figure out a way.
Get that flop house going.
Yes, I will look into it.
There's plenty of real estate.
That's what I hear, man. That's what I hear. I mean, if you see something, if you see a picture of a theater that used to be a theater, just take a picture of it and send it to me.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, I will. Will do.
Or anything. All right. Thank you, brother. Take care.
All right, man. Take care. Bye.
Rich Fulcher. That was Rich Fulcher. Oh, man. So funny. Such a good guy. So smart. Got a law degree as well. But you can see him on The Mighty Boosh, Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's a guy who's another guy who's, it's just a matter of time before he gets that thing where people know Rich Fulcher and he's making the world laugh. I can't believe so many things I forgot that he reminded me of, that we were in that Del Close class together on the 2nd floor of Wrigley Side and all the people that we knew back then. But it was interesting to hear his journey of how, shows like Modern Problems in Science started, or how he ended up going to Edinburgh and working at BBC and Paramount in the UK. Because, you always think, I wish I'd done that, and I wish I'd done an Edinburgh show, or I'd love to be able to travel, but maybe there will be a way someday in the AC world after Corona to go out there again. I thank you for listening. If you're still listening, bless you. And check out thepit-nyc.com for online classes, and hopefully someday classes in the real world. And all the other stuff we do. Wherever this finds you, I hope it finds you healthy. And if you're not healthy, I hope you get healthy. And once you get healthy, I hope you appreciate your health. Because if you're able to take a deep breath, that is a big deal. So wherever this finds you, I will say good night, or sweet dreams, or good morning, or good afternoon. And until we meet again, or in the real world, which I hope we can someday, safe travels, and so long. Spread the word.
Thanks for listening to Global Comedy Studios. Is this a bad time to talk? Stay tuned for more.